me say first, the love and support that my family has received has been amazing. I love all of you. It has been so overwhelming to be in the hospital room and see people visiting, calling, emailing, texting, visiting. It has been amazing. The people through last night for visitation has just taken my breath away. And yes, have I cried a lot? Oh my gosh, for all my family, it's been overwhelming. But when you have the love and support of people that love you, it's overwhelming. And I'm telling you, it's a wonderful life. If you've seen that movie, it's my favorite. It just so tells a story of how we've been so blessed. And have all of you come today to live this with our Father and celebrate what I believe to be the greatest man that's ever lived. Wow, this is so awesome. I'm touched by your love, and I'm just so happy that you're here to share with me, because there's stories with every one of you. In fact, in our world, if you ever met him, you got a story about R.L. I think everybody can agree on that, right? I could have brought so many things in my life, my dad, for you today. I really, where do you start with somebody that has been overwhelming in your life in every way? But to follow my script, it's important. I knew it would be difficult for me to cover some things, so I just want to share a few things, and hopefully, Mother, I'll get all this right. You can correct me, or I'll have Vicki step in if I don't. So let's just give it a shot from there. In the movie Forrest Gump, Forrest at one point says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. My experience with my father in the last few months have certainly been a box of unexpected chocolates. I never could have dreamed the strength my father would give to help him fight his devastating war with cancer. Discussions with doctors, nurses, and an array of obstacles were met every day, and I can promise you, I challenged every doctor and every nurse and everybody in the hospital every day. I begged them to remember one thing. This is my father that's sitting here, and I asked them if they had a father. I asked them, let's try to care my dad like it was theirs. And I promise you, it makes a difference. When you love people, I'm giving it as a suggestion to you, it's personal. And those of you, if you ever experience this, let them know it matters to you. And I promise you, people will listen. Love conquers everything, and my dad proved that by his life. The story begins with how a matchmaking sister, Kathleen, where are you? You're around here somewhere. She tricks her divorced sister into blindly meeting this country boy from Tallahatchie County, Mississippi. True? Who other than God himself could have ever known how a 5-year-old little boy and his divorced mother would wind up being the luckiest and most blessed family to ever live? The little boy's mother prayed to God as a delicate time in her life was to provide her someone to love her for who she was, to be faithful to her, and to love and care for her little boy like he was his own. 3 years later, that little boy was saved from drowning by the man who God had chosen to answer her prayers and become the husband to his dad, or he's become the mother and son. It is so amazing how God works things out for us so many times when we need it the most. Our family went on Wednesday night to this week to plan this session with you guys today with Pastor Sessions, and to really celebrate the life of our father, because yes, it hurts and yes, it stings, but his memories for my family live for a lifetime in so many ways for all of us that we see. God led us to the meeting that night to help our family, along with Pastor Sessions, to organize a service to hopefully be what we call the wow factor. Does anybody know what the wow factor is? Because I said to him, and I think it was kind of a way to set the tone, because I'm a little passionate for those of you that know me. And I said, I would like for every one of you, when you leave today and you go get your cars, you get to I-40, and you're not talking about traffic, you would lean over to somebody and say, this was the most touching service I've ever been to in my life. And I said, I pray and I've asked God that you would be able to say that today, because it's so important to me, because I truly believe he's the greatest man that ever lived. And I hope that today that you'll see this, because this guy was loved, and I know how you feel, and I know how I feel. And for all the Jerry Clower fans, and I think we're eyeballing on that, aren't we? We got that together? I think that's the way that works. As we finalized the outline of what the service was going to be like, we finally got down to the details of what was really going to take place today. And that's really what I've been waiting on all along, is to have a chance to talk about my father. I really would love to have this service all but to myself, but I have to share my dad, and I hate to do that, but you know what? It's the way it is. It's all about family, all of us and friends. So that's a big deal, and to me it is too. So tough to do, but sorry, Dad, you know I would have done that anyway. How could I have ever known an almost 2 month stay for my dad would forever change my family in a way that only God and my dad could manage to pull off? I promise you this, wow, I never saw this coming. Ever in my life I could have imagined how we would go on such a journey, what would take place. Because I can promise all of you this, our family is more united today than it's ever been since I've been on this earth. And I think all my brothers can say that. I've never have loved them more and loved you. And I've had a rededication of my life to God because of what my father has taught me. So I'm telling you, this is serious business, and God is so real. I hope you'll ask him about the miracles that we've watched happen with mother. It's been amazing. The stories of my father for me are endless and priceless. Let me tell you about a story about a man named Darrell, poor Mississippi man who always kept the family fed. Then one day, you get the idea? This guy was this kind of guy, just the one that we could all relate to. If you don't know the Beverly Hillbillies, I'm sorry, but for those of you that do, you kind of get the drift where it goes, right? I never got through all the words of that, but it gave me a good feeling thinking about Dad where it would go like that. Stories with my father. Wow. When I started this a week ago, I tell you what, I wish I could show you my list of, I said, what area am I going to pick? Am I going to talk about this or am I going to talk about that? It really was tough for me knowing that I didn't want to have all day, but I really wish I could have because there's a lot of funny stories about Dad that are incredible. So I thought about all the fishing and hunt trips that Dad's taken me on, and every one of those would be a story in of itself. And as Ruben was talking about earlier, the unannounced visits. I mean, who goes out today and doesn't even tell them they're calling and just shows up? I mean, are you kidding me? How does this happen? This is what they did. They felt loved everywhere, but they spread love that's uncommon that we don't see. I'm glad my dad was non-traditional. Thank goodness for people that stand for something that's real. We could use it in our world so much. It's just amazing. I think about sitting in the Grand Ole Opry with my mom and dad at Soul Out. I have to sit in the window and we're watching it. My dad is just dancing in the aisles, enjoying himself so much. Unbelievable. Watching Willie Nelson with short hair, what would take place. What a time to be there. Monday Night Wrestling was probably one of my favorite times with my dad because this mild-mannered man that we talk about was shadowboxing. To watch him jumping around in the house, and for those of you who saw him, you never could believe that he could move like this. And I really didn't realize until later life that Dad was a football player. I mean, things that you learn when it happens. But listen, this guy got a little wild at times. It probably causes me to be that way during football games. So now you know why. I blame it on my dad. Then we go next. We think about Christmas lights on steroids. We're going to talk about Christmas lights in just a minute. We're going to spend a little more time with that. Let's just say it was definitely on steroids. And how about contraptions that only Dad could have designed? That him and Einstein must have had a meeting before these things would take place, because how did that ever happen? I can remember times walking to the bluegrass festivals in Collierville down the square and enjoying that music and watching his face and reliving all the moments of Jimmy Rogers and Bill Monroe and all the great ones that have been. Amazing music, and Dad was so excited to be there. I mean, it was fun to watch his face and the fun that we had with that. I think about having Vienna sausage and watch him eat sardines while we're fishing. I hated sardines. Look, they stink. But I tell you something, with him I enjoyed every one and watching him have that. Here we were in the 14 the flat bottom boat, Johnson motor. Here we're just hanging out there smiling. What a way to go. I think about the smiles that my dad, when all my children were born, he got to watch every one born here in Memphis. What a moment to watch him. And the hugs that he gave me. I'll tell you something. I told my children, after Father was really getting bad at the end, I said we were so blessed that he got to see them all the way through. And we all have a responsibility to give back to all our family. And I promise my family that we will be there for you. We were so loved, and we promised to so love you. I think about the trips to my kids' functions, from soccer games to Boy Scout functions, Eagle Scout designs. It just goes on and on and on. I could have made a long list, and I think you get the idea what we're talking about. This was an amazing man that spent his life with me and my brothers, his family. I mean, this is what it's all about for all of you. I challenge you, remember this when you walk out of here. Make a difference in your family's life. That's what it's all about. If we care, that's what fixes everything is love. And I hope for all of us, this is a guy that set an example that's unmatched. And I only hope and pray to God that he will help me remember in the spirit of my father what he's done. Okay, let's get down to talking about a couple things that are important to me. First, this is not I thought about this the other day because this is an example of what my dad would do. I get a little lazy about building things because I'm non-technical. And this is something that's pretty unique about when you cut your grass and you put your bags in. It's really handy. You can dump it and off you go. So Lazy Bob, one day I cracked one of these things and knocked it out. And I thought, I'm going to throw this away and let go. I'll find another one somewhere. Little did I realize it later, you can't find this anymore very easily to make this. I left it out by the street. Well, what do you know, one day, somebody must have come by my house and saw this thing and picked it up. And when they rebuilt this, I promise you, it's going to take an F5 tornado to take it away. I hope you'll look at the custom design of all the riveted sections, completely molded all the way around this has been made with. Because I promise you something, if I can be buried with it, I will. This represents my dad in a very simple way. I think everybody, if you've ever known him, this is the kind of person he was. Can you imagine somebody driving by your house to fix things because they love you so much? Who does this? I mean, Dad is just an example that you just wish we had more people we talked about on television like this. You wish you had people that represented our country. How do we not get this out, that we get caught up in a world that doesn't allow the greatness to shine? But we're letting it shine today. I hope and pray that you feel that way, because I just want to give you, that's a great example for me that means so much that he took the time to do that. When my kids were in their early years, we basically wound up forming a committee. My mom, my dad, myself, my wife, and we decided we were going to come up with a plan. And this plan was we were going to try to create a Chevy Chase type Christmas vacation atmosphere in our own front yard. Dad heard me describing that I wanted to have a Whitehaven throwback. For those of you who remember in Whitehaven, you would drive through and all the streets would have Candy Cane Lane, and we have all these different scenes. So I really thought, let's do something that we can make a memory that we can kind of share. Never did I dream how far this would go. It was back in the 60s and 70s, and even through Elvis's days, Christmas lights were a big deal in our city, everywhere that you would go to. So for us, it began in the late 1980s in trying to sell my wife what was about to happen in her front yard, which is a good sales job to begin with. So one day, Vicki and I were coming home where we lived, and we pulled into the driveway, and up what did we see? In shock and amazement, there's my dad up on top of the steep roof. And yes, he was tied to a rope to his truck, it was thrown over the roof, and he's hanging almost upside down like a professional climber. And what's he doing? He's hanging Santa and his reindeer, because he knew I'd been talking about this, and I was getting stressed about how it would take place. And he was going to meet that need no matter how impossible it seemed. That's what he was doing. And quite frankly, it's only something that R.L. Brunson could pull off. I don't think anybody can deny that he was so uncommon in his ways to do things like that. That's right, I'm telling you, he hung that sucker in a way that only F5 was going to take it away. He built it to last. And if those of you have ever seen anything he's made, can you disagree with me? I mean, this is the kind of person Dad was and what he made like that. Anyone that ever worked on a project with Dad learned one thing: never be in a hurry. Never be in a hurry. It's not going to be on time. He could run late. You know what? It's such a model for all of us. Do it the right way. Make a difference. And I think Dad did that in every way of things that he did. I think everybody would understand it. Everything that Dad did like that he touched, he really wanted it to be special. He really wanted to make a difference of what he did to the shavings and things we've talked about. But from the late 80s and 2 years on, my mother, my father, my kids, my neighbors, out-of-town family members, and my gifted brothers helped design and created a full yard of everything that was amazing to people that would come up to my door, that would stop by, that would leave notes. And I have to say that whatever I ever felt about it, how do I feel today? I am so thankful and overwhelmed that this is just one. I tried to bring the whole thing, but I think y'all would have thought I was nuts. So I wanted to have a little bit of Dad today. There's no way that I could not have something to have a little laugh with you guys. What might represent what the yard would be like. Some of you may never see my yard, but I do have pictures, so if you want to see it, we'll take time to do that. The cutouts of this and what we did were spectacular. Watching how we cut, my brothers got involved. It really became a labor of love that I can only tell you that I think I can safely say for those that ever came where we lived, it was a pretty special time. So as you look at this, I want you to just think about Dad and my family of all that we did, because there were some pictures that we're talking about that. You don't buy this at Walmart, by the way. This is something that's really special. So if you can imagine, if you will, we have a gigantic abominable snowman that would come in the yard with my brothers and the cutouts and the things that we had. We have a gigantic Grinch. I tried to find a way to get it in the van. It just was not going to go. But it certainly is one of my favorites. If you see my picture with my dad when we're by the Grinch, I tell you, when I saw that, I was looking for a picture that would really sum how I felt when I saw it. I had to get up and just leave the room and go cry for about an hour. I was so give out because, man, that's going to be a picture that I will have forever in my life, and it was so special to me. Little did I ever dream that Christmas decorations would mean so much, not just to my family, but to everybody. It became a ministry. One night, my wife and I had people come to our house and knock on the door, and she would see all the time that Dad and I spent doing this. They had a complete basket full of things they were giving us with personal notes from everybody in the family. I'm talking about Grandma, Grandpa, and 15 people standing in my front door. And all the notes, we wound up with about $300 or $400 worth of gift cards. I gave Dad some of the gift cards, and they were expressing how much it meant to them, to the detail that we extended that ministry like that. Who would have ever thought this? Believe me, it makes a difference when you do the little things. It matters when you do that every day. So I hope in my dad's spirit that would challenge you to be better. So imagine the Christmas villages, the snowman, the Christmas lights on the outside of the house everywhere, the ladders that scare you to death and you don't know how it's going to go down, watching Dad hang from the trees when he's cutting wood with your friends and your neighbors to help everybody whenever they need him. I mean, it just goes on and on what it would be for that. What a labor of love that my family experienced with all the Christmas lights that we did together. And Dad was definitely the director of operations for everything that took place. He was an incredible man that will sorely be missed by every one of us and every day. Though he did not live to make his presence known, the way in which he lived, his absence will surely be felt by many. I want to read you a phrase that kind of gets to the culmination of what I really believe in life. I think that really says how I feel from my heart so much to all of you, is that greatness and richness of life should never be measured by the years of life that we live, but always should be measured by the precious way that we live in those years and how they matter. And no one can argue with this. Our dad lived 100 lives and blessed the lives of everyone. I love all of you. Thank you for being here.